They say they're my bank. They've confirmed my postcode and my account number. They say they've spotted suspicious activity on my account. They could be my bank. Now they've asked me to move my money to a safe account they've set up. That tells me they are not my bank. My money? My info? I don't think so.
A genuine bank will never contact you asking you to move your money to a safe account. Take 5.
To have a national minimum wage. I want to invite our first speaker. Who is our first speaker? Leon from the Free Market Foundation. And I think Leon will give us a good perspective of what informs the views of the Free Market Foundation.
It's not clear to me why we are discussing the need for a minimum wage. We have one. We have a national minimum wage. The majority of South African workers are in the sector that earn it, and it's the biggest sector in the South African economy. And the minimum wage for those people, nearly 9 million, is zero. They are in the biggest sector, the unemployment sector. And they already have the regulated minimum wage, and all minimum wages, by the way, are always the same. They're always zero. And that is the wage to which people are condemned by anybody who proposes a minimum wage. I do realize also that it's SAS law, and with some of the people here, I am Daniel in the lion's den. The self-interest of most people here is that there should be lots of law governing labour. That's what SAS law, after all, is about. And there should be a minimum wage, and there should be anything that compounds it. It's like if I were in a meeting of dentists, I would imagine they would want a discussion about how to maximize tooth decay, and along with it, truth decay. So let me say, though, that I don't mind being in the lion's den. My name is Leon Louw, which, after all, is lion in Dutch and lion in French. So I'm lion. So maybe you're in the lion's den, so beware. Having said that, every way, the majority of South Africans have a minimum wage, and that minimum wage is zero. I'm going to address the issue from 3 perspectives, what I call triple H. From the heart first, and that's the one I regard as most important. Then the head, which I regard as the a priori theory. And then the hard data, so heart, head, and heart. And the hard data is the one that I think is least relevant for reasons I'll give. Firstly, the emotional and the heart. I think, and I make no apology for saying this, that to have a discussion about a minimum wage at this time in South Africa, when the Central Statistical Stats SA said just on Monday, 2 days ago, that unemployment is now 26.7%, narrowly defined, the highest it has ever been in our history. If you have the expanded number, it's 36.3. Over half of all youth have never had a job and are not likely to have one unless the labour law is changed very substantially, and will have zero chance of earning anything more than the minimum wage of zero if it is introduced. 9 million people roughly unemployed. Now those are numbers. We all just play around with numbers, as I'm sorry to say the institute we're going to hear does. But I want you to pause for a moment and just reflect on the fact that each one of those people is a real human being. And I would encourage the people in this room to get out of your air-conditioned office into your air-conditioned luxury 4x4 and drive into a shanty town and go and meet one of these 9 million or 8.5 or 8 or 6, whatever the number is, people. One human being. Go and be with them. And then come and tell me you still want a minimum wage. When those destitute people, living in squalor, indignity, tramp the streets, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, they are humiliated. They are impoverished, they are scared, they are frightened, they suffer insecurity, they have to face their families. The social and psychological implications are astounding. Don't think of the statistic. It's frightening. It's the highest rate of enduring unemployment in the world. Think of those human beings. And if you are sitting there thinking it's in your self-interest because you get legal fees or whatever it is, you have a job that is advanced, just pause for a moment and think about the inhumanity, the callous inhumanity, and say, no, hold on a sec. There are human beings here, millions of human beings, who matter. And what you want for them is the freedom to go and sell their labor for something, to do something. Now, you've heard, it was Alan Fine said in a Business Day article recently, that the Free Market Foundation is pro-business. I have the quote here. Yes, we are. The business we're pro is the destitute people trying to survive labor law, which has rendered them into this ghastly human condition that people talk about as if it's a statistic, as if it's some kind of macroeconomic masturbation that should take place. No. When Joburg City Council drove 6,000 street traders off the street before Christmas in 2014, and the people they used was the cleansing department, the people who clean litter off the streets, in an operation called Operation Clean Sweep. These people from the air-conditioned offices sent out a private hit squad called the Red Ants to go and clear human beings off the street as if they litter. Some of you may know, you probably don't, but you should, that the Constitutional Court ruled in its fastest ever decision, unanimously, that all of them have to be allowed back and the council had to back off. Who brought that case? We did. Where were the people who cared? Nowhere. These are the so-called free market capitalists who supposedly don't care and don't want a minimum wage. We don't want a minimum wage because we don't want maximum suffering. We want minimum human indignity. So let's move on over here. The people who would be affected by a minimum wage as a matter of the heart is the people at the bottom of the pile, the most vulnerable people, the people who are unskilled. When we brought a case against a section in the Labour Relations Act, some of you lawyers may know about it, odd sort of outcome where we think we won, but the other side have a Pyrrhic victory and think they won. But nonetheless, it actually went further than we even wanted. Who contacted us and wanted to come in as amicus curiae? The Society for the Disabled. Their people can't get jobs under these laws. And it's people, it's the youth, it's the unskilled, it's the rural migrants, it's the aged, it's the mentally challenged. These are the people to whom your heart should go out. These are the people for whom callous disregard is contained in everyone who propagates a minimum wage. Not the fortunate, lucky ones who have the wage. And what's more, we will hear a proposal, I suspect, that the wage should be 6,000 rand. Why are you so cruel? 6,000? You surely don't expect people to live on 6,000? Why not 60,000? Why not 1 million? Why not 1 billion? I mean, you know, and we all know, that as you raise the bar, all you do is change the degree. The quantity of people you render unemployed rises. And then we have, I'm sorry to say, we might hear, this twaddle that if you pay the wage, it boosts the economy because people go out and spend it. Well, why not just become overnight the wealthiest country on earth? Just pay everybody R1 trillion a day. We will be the wealthiest country on earth instantly, and the economy will be boosted and we will have economic growth. Because you know and everybody knows it's nonsense. Then all it is a question of how much wealth is actually produced by real working people who are allowed to get a job and not kept out of the job by such measures as a minimum wage. Now the head. The head intellectual part, our priorism, which is the School of Economics, I think is the only one we can apply here, is to say what's logical. Then we'll get into the data. You surely don't think you can raise the price of something and have people buy just as much or even more. Surely nobody who uses their other synapse to reach that conclusion. Surely you have to agree that if you make something more expensive, if we were the managers of a company making widgets and we employ 1,000 workers, and the minimum wage says we have to pay them all twice as much, the short-term consequence will be indetectable. Tomorrow they will all still have a job. Tomorrow we will still make as many widgets. And what we will do is we will start selling them at higher prices in order to recover the cost of the minimum wage. And minimum wages are no different from any other price. If you raise the price, you sell less. And what will happen is the consumers now have to pay more for our widgets, and what will they do? They will gradually buy less widgets and buy more something else. Or, if we're very lucky, in these cherry-picked studies where there appears not to be a decline in employment in that sector, what it means is more money is going into it. It comes from somewhere. Maybe something else that consumers are now not buying. There, then the people have lost their jobs in order for the ones who get this higher wage to earn more. So that simple logic, a priori logic tells you, if we are making these widgets, what we will do is we will gradually start making woblets instead, and wangles. And we will start selling less widgets and producing less widgets and investing somewhere else. It takes time. That, by the way, gets us into the empirical data. The empirical data, the numbers. Now, there are thousands, literally thousands, of studies that purport to establish by number crunching whether or not minimum wages do or don't cause unemployment, and they are divided. Nobody I know of has tried to even do a count, but this is not a democracy issue, this is a logic issue. But anyway, let's say for argument's sake it's roughly divided. I think it's much more in favour of people who say minimum wages do cause unemployment, which is the overwhelming majority of opinion amongst professional economists. In surveys, they regard that as being likely to be the case, and that they retard growth and brings about market distortions and inefficiency. But the studies, typically short-term studies, say that if you raise the minimum wage in the fast food industry or the textile industry, there is in the short term no apparent loss of jobs. In some industries with high elasticity or flexibility, like agriculture, there is a short-term loss of jobs. In South Africa, about half or more. And what happens is when you study the long term, as a recent Fraser Institute study has found, looking at those that say there is no immediate impact, the answer is, if you look at the long term, yes, there is. But let me immediately say, although those are the studies that seem to me to be more likely to be correct, it actually makes no difference, because you can trot out literally thousands on each side, and the ones that we are told tell us in South Africa it will have little or no effect are models, which is really a sort of Excel spreadsheet that you put the numbers that give you the answer you want in, and your answer comes out. And if it doesn't come out, you change the assumptions in the spreadsheet. So, I would like you to, well, one of the earliest, one of the seminal studies was the black American economist Walter Williams, who looked at unemployment amongst black youth, which in America, like in South Africa, averages around, hovers around 50%, half have no job, and the uneducated, unsophisticated, especially rural ones, have essentially zero chance of getting one. And he found what happened before the minimum wage, unemployment amongst black American youth was lower than amongst white American youth after the minimum wage was shot up. And there are all sorts of reasons, as he explains, why that should be true. And in South Africa, we have a similar result. Unemployment amongst white South Africans is not much higher than it was in '94. The rise in unemployment has been amongst black South Africans, and this should make you think, aren't the measures we're taking counterproductive? Why do we have a result that is so racially ghastly, but more seriously so ghastly in terms of human suffering? I want to conclude by saying, imagine a minimum wage as something quite simple really, complicated in theory, complicated in data and empirical things. It varies from sector to sector, but it changes over time. In some sectors it is slow. Elasticity is high or low, and fast or slow. Now what you have essentially is a ladder, and people are on this ladder. Low wage earners at the top, high wage earners at the bottom, and the minimum wage is a rung of the ladder. It affects almost nobody. It affects the few people who may be nudged up one rung or nudged down one rung. But everyone else stays where they are on the ladder. It doesn't affect people above, it doesn't affect people below, and the propagators of the minimum wage agree and admit to that. So what you do is you simply raise the bar. You raise the quantity of people below the minimum wage by raising it. And that is what you do, maybe not a direct ratcheted effect, but nobody can seriously think that is not the case. And I close where I started. Don't think of it as a number. Think of it as a human being. A suffering, destitute, victimized human being. And I found the discussion even of a minimum wage callous and reprehensible at this time in our history.